thank you, Ashley, for that riveting story on the Arkansas man who inadvertently traded $50,000 worth of lunch meat for crack cocaine. Personally, I would have rather had the lunch meat. Wow, what a exciting segment we're going to have next is our special report on e-cigarettes. Next, I will travel to San Francisco to meet Armea, who is a subject matter expert on e-cigarettes, who will explain what they are. Please stay tuned. Thank you for joining us. We are now in San Francisco, California with Armea, who is a subject matter expert on e-cigarettes. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Brooke. Thank you, everyone, for having me in the show.
So what I would like to know is, what are e-cigarettes? I've been hearing so much about them, and I've never even used one.
Okay, so e-cigarettes, they have been here in the US since 2007. They are known as ENDS, which stands for Electronic Nicotine Delivery System. They started in China in 2003, and they started because of increased restriction for public and indoor smoking. And actually, we have a diagram here that shows the e-cigarettes as it's a metal canister that comprised of a liquid cartridge, atomizer that heats the liquid, and a battery that supports the power for the instrument to use. So instead of inhaling smoke, the e-cigarette users actually inhale vapor that can be flavored or flavorless, and all people actually use it as a nicotine replacement therapy.
Oh, okay. So about this vapor, does it have chemicals in it, or are they different chemicals than a normal traditional cigarette that we've been smoking for centuries?
Okay, so actually the chemicals in the e-cigarettes are more than the chemicals in the regular cigarettes, and they contain, other than nicotine, they contain ultrafine particles and low levels of toxins that are scientifically proven to be cancer initiating, and some of them actually cause cancer. Yes, so these are the chemicals that are different in the e-cigarettes compared to the regular cigarettes.
Okay, so I heard you talk about cancer, and since you are the subject matter expert, would you say that these are harmful?
Actually, so cancer can be the chronic problem, but for acute problem as well, the nicotine toxicity can have symptoms as headaches, trouble breathing, coughing, dizziness, nose bleeding, chest pain, and etc.
Wow, so these are dangerous for our people.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to
Thank
be
you,
out here in
Brooke.
San Fran
Thank you
with
for
you.
having me here.
Next, we're going to go to Hotlanta to see Dr. Menjez and talk about who smokes e-cigarettes. Welcome back. We're now in Hotlanta with Dr. Menjez, who is from the CDC. He is going to talk to us about e-cigarettes and who's smoking them. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
So, Dr. Menjez, who does smoke e-cigarettes?
Well, it's actually a wide variety of the population. Since their introduction to the U.S. in about 2007, we've seen growth in both the adult and the youth sectors. And in the most latest times, we've been seeing the adults been using about 4.2% of the population. The adult population has tried or regularly uses e-cigarettes, while we have a lot of varying different numbers for youths.
Mm-hmm.
As we can see, this is a little bit of our older data, but back in 2012, we had almost 6.8% of all students, and that includes middle school students, elementary school students, and high school students. They all had at least tried e-cigarettes. And if we go over and we look at the high school, we also see that up to 10% of them all tried it. And so that's a large percentage of our youth population that's trying. Even with that, some of the data does vary. They do some state-by-state studies, and in Hawaii, they actually found that roughly about 17% of their students had tried it out in there.
Wow, that's a pretty large number.
Yeah, it really is.
So you're saying that both youth and adults smoke e-cigarettes. So I'm assuming that the reasons are going to be different.
Well, certainly. They both have their both different factors. You know, the largest we see in adults is really between about the 21 to 45 year age group. And that is the primary influence on that has really seemed to be that it's to quit smoking. A lot of people are trying to use e-cigarettes as a smoking cessation aid where they can slowly back down the nicotine levels and try and help break an addiction in that way. Whereas then the youth, our largest section that's using is the 11 to 19-year-old adolescent males. And a lot of that is the typical peer pressure that we think of with teenagers. Oh, I want to be cool, my dad does it, or my parents do it, or they kind of just see adults do it and kind of go from there.
Right.
And so those are really just a couple different ways that we can all go about that.
Exactly. So I've noticed while I watch the TV, I see a bunch of non-smoking campaigns. And as we can see, e-cigarettes have had such a great foothold in our communities. So why is it whenever we have all these anti-smoking campaigns out there?
Well, when e-cigarettes were first introduced, the law hadn't caught up to them. The law really wasn't prepared for them. So there's no bans on advertising, anything like that. And so they marketed demographics from adults to quit smoking, or that it was fun and that it was cool, and they can also target these towards children also. So that was a huge, quick way that they got in. Were able to get a quick foothold into the U.S. And then also, there's a lot of different flavors of e-cigarettes. Not all of these e-cigarettes use nicotine-flavored liquids. And so that's part of the way that they can be marketed towards children. There's bubblegum flavors, cherry, whatever you want to name it, someone out there is making it. And that's enticing. People think, especially kids, like, oh, it's cool, I'm still smoking, but I still have a different flavor. Oh, this one's blackberry.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Minchas.
Oh, no
It's
problem.
been a pleasure.
It's great being on.
So next, we're going to go to ATX with a state representative from Texas, Miss Edith. And now, in the famous Austin, Texas, right off of 6th Street, onto the Capitol, is a state representative, Edith, who is going to talk about her legislation plans for e-cigarettes. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
Edith.
Brooke. Thank you for having me.
So, what is the initiative your office is taking?
So our initiative is to prohibit the sale of e-cigarettes to minors in Texas, and we've actually noticed a sharp rise in the use of e-cigarettes among minors, and that number is increasing, as you have already talked about in your report. Currently, we know that 40 states have already passed legislation to prohibit minors from both using and purchasing e-cigarettes, but Texas is not one of them, and we definitely want to change that.
Okay.
We believe that this legislation is necessary because right now children can just walk into any e-cigarette store and legally purchase and use e-cigarettes, and there are no legal barriers to stop them, so we want to change that. We have considered the public's health with this matter, and there's two main reasons as to why we want to put out this legislation. The first one is that we just don't know enough about e-cigarettes and the long-term health effects of using them and of vaping. And we do know that the liquid contained has a lot of harmful chemicals, like you've already talked about. And one of them is nicotine, which is addictive, and also it has the power to alter behavior and also alter memory with possibly permanent effects. So very serious. The other reason is that e-cigarettes have actually been shown to encourage and also normalize tobacco use and traditional cigarette use among minors. So we want to prevent e-cigarettes from acting basically as a gateway to the use of traditional cigarettes before those habits even begin with this young population.
Interesting. So I like where you're going with that, and I see that you're trying to protect our youth. And you talked about legislation a lot. So what is your proposed legislation going to look like?
So we know that legislation is only going to be effective if it's coupled with the appropriate laws. And with our proposed bill, we want the same regulations against e-cigarettes that those that are currently in place for traditional cigarette use among minors. So we definitely want to stop this potential problem at the source. And we need to be effective with this bill, and we will by giving appropriate fines and appropriate punishments to those minors that are caught using e-cigarettes and vaping, and also to those people who sell them these e-cigarettes. So we definitely want to be proactive and prevent any possible health problems to our youths in Texas. And we encourage everyone out there to please contact your local representatives and let them know that you want these changes for our youth.
Interesting. It seems like you have a good plan and a good direction of where we want to go to support our youth and nipping these e-cigarettes in the bud. And I thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Welcome back, and I would like to thank you for joining us tonight on our special report on e-cigarettes. I hope it has been very informative for you to learn what e-cigarettes are they harmful, who uses them, and why they're using them, and what are our next steps in preventing the use. I would like to thank you from Group 5, and this is us signing off from the YouTube.
Alright, that's a wrap.
Are we done filming?
Yeah, we're done.
Oh, thank God. Where's my e-cigarette?